we felt we were pretty well diversified. He had his business, I had mine, 401ks, all of that stuff. Figured, we're good. And then COVID hit and it all went, right? Stock market dropped. He has a martial arts school. Got hit hard. As medicine, we got shut down. So it was like, okay, well, how do we pivot? What do we do from here? And you interviewed a very close friend of mine not long ago, Ashley Hayden.
Yep.
And we've been best friends for a long time, and we go for long runs together. And so what we were really looking for is is there something else that we can diversify ourselves into that is going to provide us with passive income for the future? And then Ashley really kind of gave us the push to jump in. So that's sort of how we started.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 47 of the Realized Gains podcast. I'm Stephen Tran. I'm an Oregon and Washington realtor, and I invest in multifamily and short-term rentals.
And I'm your co-host, Jordan Lee, mortgage lender here based in Portland, Oregon, NMLS 1440237. And I'm licensed in 9 states, and I invest in single-family residence.
And Jordan, who did we have the pleasure of interviewing today?
Oh yeah, we had a super interesting interview. It was actually a referral of one of our previous guests, and her name is Kim Workman. So she's an orthopedic surgeon and has her full-time career, but she also invests in real estate.
Yeah, I mean, she's got her start pretty late. I mean, she only started buying real estate in 2019, 2020?
Recently, last few years.
And she's really built up a portfolio super quickly. She's kind of dabbled in a little bit of everything, small multifamily, large multifamily, short-term rentals, Hawaii rentals. So, she's built up a lot of experience.
Yeah, I talked a little bit about self-directed in the IRA, talked a little bit about recourse versus non-recourse loans. So if you're interested in investing in multifamily and using, investment in real estate as like a long-term passive income strategy to retire as your side gig, this is a great episode for you.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 47 of the Realized Gains podcast. I'm Stephen Tran.
And I'm your co-host, Jordan Lee here, and we're super excited to have a guest with us today, special guest with us today, Kim Workman. Kim, you mind just giving us a quick introduction of how you made your way to Portland, and your background, and kind of why you got interested in real estate?
Well, I made my way to Portland in 2005 after finishing up my medical training. I'm an orthopedic surgeon by day, and I actually kind of fell into real estate a few years ago. My husband, so kind of a twofold thing. My husband has been a business owner in Portland for 30 years.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
So that's how you guys found Portland?
Well, I found him here in Portland.
Oh, okay.
And then ended up staying in Portland rather than going back to San Francisco, which was originally the plan. Did
you say you did medical training here or
San Francisco?
Oh, okay, but you came here for a job?
I did come here for fellowship, so that's how I landed in Portland for a year. The plan was to come here for a year, go back to San Francisco.
Right.
I had a job lined up there. I met my husband up here though, and so I ended up staying, and glad I did. So have lived here since 2005.
Okay.
And he has been an entrepreneur his whole career. And he started the whole house hacking thing in college, and had bought a couple properties and rented out the rooms, and then built his own. He bought his own building down in Southeast Portland, Inner East Side, about 16 years ago, and had plans of. He kind of talked to me over the years of like, hey, once I get my building paid off, we really should, start, maybe buying some properties here. And I was like, why would we want to do that? It's so expensive. and so that, we didn't really talk about much more. We had kids, life is busy. And we felt we were pretty well diversified. He had his business, I had mine, 401ks, all of that stuff. Figured, we're good. And then COVID hit. And it all went, right? Stock market dropped. He has a martial arts school. Got hit hard. As medicine, we got shut down. So it was like, okay, well, how do we pivot? What do we do from here? And you interviewed a very close friend of mine not long ago, Ashley Hayden.
Yep.
And we've been best friends for a long time, and we go for long runs together, and I've been asking her questions over the years about real estate and starting to kind of see the upsides of it and how you can create and build wealth with it. And so what we were really looking for is like, is there something else that we can diversify ourselves into that is going to provide us with passive income for the future? And then Ashley really kind of gave us the push to jump in. So that's sort of how we started.
Okay.
It's funny that you saying that real estate's really expensive coming from San Francisco.
Right. Well, like, why would you want to spend that much money though on something that is not your own house? I was like, I didn't know all the benefits of investing at that time.
I mean, so your husband was basically doing his property management and everything, and did you guys not talk about it too early?
Well, he has his own, his business is in his own building.
Okay.
So he
so he
after-
owns like a multi-use building?
he owns a commercial building, has his own parking lot. Do you know where Grand Central Bowl is?
Yep.
Yes.
He's like just a few blocks up from that, Northwest
Okay.
Fighting Arts on Morrison and 12th. And so he doesn't have any other, it's just his business in there. So he doesn't have to property manage. And when I met him, he had already gotten tired of house hacking and had moved into just his own home by himself.
Okay.
So, yeah. But he took a lot of real estate courses back in the day, investing courses, and had kind of always planned on getting more into it. But then, life happened.
Sure.
So he was focused on his martial arts business as his main thing, and then that property, did it not have units that were rented out specifically to tenants? Okay.
So he was like the sole occupant of
Yeah.
the building. Got it. Okay.
I mean, that's some valuable real estate down
It still
there.
is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So our seed money was a line of credit actually on the building.
On the building, right. And so then when you went, you're like, okay, we're going to pivot to real estate. I've heard it's good. What did that process look like in terms of, we want to buy this type of building, or it needs to be these numbers, or did you just find a deal? Like, how did that work?
Well, Ashley showed us a deal over in Oregon City, actually a 20 unit first. And I think that was just a little bit overwhelming, especially too when we looked at the numbers, like, well, that's really not going to make very much. She's very heavily invested in Texas, so steered us that way. But we were also really looking local because we really wanted to be able to have eyes on it.
Right.
We don't have a lot of time to travel.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I've always been a Zillow and Redfin stalker. And we wanted something that was going to cash flow that we could add some value to and then kind of gradually grow. We wanted to start with more multi-unit just for economies of scale. So we ended up finding a couple of fourplexes that are right next to each other but on separate tax lots in Kaiser.
Oh, okay.
That had been on the market for a while. And my husband is very good at negotiating and is also very good at has done a lot of his own rehabs.
Oh, wow.
So he's good at going in and looking at the condition of the building and kind of having an eye for what it's going to need, and then if we need to negotiate further. And so we ended up getting those under contract for a pretty decent price.
So 2 fourplexes. It was the same owner that was selling. It was like a package basically, but different tax lots.
Yeah.
And then for that, did you use standard, like conventional financing, residential financing, or did you get a commercial loan?
Yeah, they had advertised as 8 units, but we found out that they were on 2 tax lots.
Oh, perfect. So
as we were in contract. So then we ended up splitting them. Found a 10% down loan option at the time. This was
really?
For investors?
For an investment property,
This was
fourplex?
2021.
What bank was that?
It was with Mountain America Credit Union.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. But it was still like a 30-year fix?
30-year fixed, 15-year term.
Oh, okay.
So
after
30-year amortization, 15-year term.
Okay, so after 15 years, you had to refinance or pay off.
Right, at 3.5%.
Holy cow.
I know, right? Yeah. So those were the days. And then we put more money in. There's a fair amount of deferred maintenance. So those have been projects, and as tenants have moved, there's tenants in there since the 90s, and as they moved out, renovated units and increased rents. And it's been pretty satisfying turning those properties around. The tenants that have been there for a long time, a few of them, said, "Yeah, thank you so much for
fixing things
around here." Yeah, and
there's a ton of that in the Salem Kaiser area. There's a lot.
So it's fun, and I, go down there every once in a while, and I know the names of all our tenants, and if I see them, like, hey, how's it going? And so those properties are actually our best performing properties.
What did you pay for them?
$975 together.
Together.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and how many bedrooms are they?
Each fourplex has 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,200 square feet.
Oh, nice.
And then two bedroom, 2 bath, 1,000 square feet. They're sort of a townhome style.
Okay.
And
what are the rents approximately now?
Going in, like most of the 3 bedrooms were at like $900.
Oh, they started at $900.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they were at. Now they're at $1,750.
Nice.
That's a good pickup. So that's with like when
lucky,
people leaving and turning it over, or
people leaving us turning over. All of the 3 bedrooms have turned over.
Okay, yeah. You said you had people there since the 90s. Were those the people that had the $900 rent?
A couple of them were, yes. We still have some of the 2 bedrooms that people been there since for a long time.
Sure, yeah.
But they're great. They're great tenants.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the deferred maintenance you guys had to deal with?
A lot of kind of dry rot siding, replacing, painting. The carports needed new roofs. Last year we had to completely redo drainage pipe out to the street.
Oh, the sewer line?
Not the sewer, but just the drainage from the gutters.
Yeah.
Because it was pulling up right next to a tenant's door, and it just wasn't draining. So when they scoped it, found that roots had gone through, and so that was a little pricey.
Yeah.
There's still some stuff that, like, there's been a leak that's into one of the laundry rooms, so we need to kind of fix that. And so there's still definitely ongoing stuff.
I mean, what year is this property?
1979, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's definitely the year where you need a lot of maintenance.
Yeah.
I have 2 properties in the 60s, so.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that's probably past the period when they were doing galvanized plumbing.
I have no idea.
Crossing our fingers.
So yeah, how much? It sounds like you're pretty active with repairs and kind of going and visiting. Do you not like contract out much of the work then?
We self-manage with Hemlane.
Okay.
I've heard of Hemlane before, and they actually do have a full maintenance coordination package if you want.
Okay.
And so they will take our calls, so we don't have to take midnight calls if they're ever come through. But we keep a close eye on when they are going to be calling out vendors, and if it's going to be kind of any handyman stuff, Jeff calls our own handyman to take care of it.
It's called Hemlane?
Hemlane.
Hemlane.
Some sort of like online service.
Yeah, I mean, you've probably heard of like Rent Ready and some of these other things. It's like that. All the tenants pay their rent via the portal, and they can put in their maintenance requests through there. And
do you also do they also help with lease up? Like you advertise through them?
You can. They do have kind of lease up help, and they can find you a leasing agent. That's been more difficult though in Kaiser.
Okay. How are you keeping it full? Like, has it been hard to find tenants or? And where do you advertise through?
So when you advertise on Hemlane, they syndicate it out.
Oh, so they do that for you.
Yeah, so
okay.
you can put your one listing on Hemlane. Okay. They syndicate it out. Zillow, Lovely, I don't know, a bunch of different ones. We do end up getting, the last couple weekends we've been going down to do some showings because we have a vacancy coming up. But I managed to find a local, she's just starting up her property management company, and she's now doing the leasing for us for that. So, because we don't want to be taking all our weekends.
I mean, that's quite a drive.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, he lives down there, so.
It's not that bad of a drive.
So, I mean, how was it, like, kind of taking on this project and getting into, like, managing property and dealing with all this maintenance? How did you feel about it?
I love it. So, I love the deal hunt. I love trying to figure out how to add value to the property. How do you pull the levers to increase your revenue, decrease your expenses, increase your NOI? And it was like drinking from a fire hose. Every time I'm in the car, it's podcasts or books. And So a ton of learning, asking other people for advice. It's definitely, it is a lot of work. And so when you have a full-time job as well, I get up at like 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And until 5:36 is when I do real estate stuff. And then I work out, and then I go to work.
Yeah.
And you mentioned kids too.
And kids,
And
yeah.
kids.
But
are you still like full-time
Yep.
orthopedic surgeon? So what does that schedule look like?
It varies day to day. Most of the time, I try to have Tuesdays as my admin days.
Okay.
So like today. But the last 2 weeks after getting back from a 2-week vacation were like 65-hour weeks. It was just sort of a flood.
Are you at a clinic where you have to like take regular call too, or is it?
Yeah, our call burden's not that bad though.
Okay.
So I'm in private practice, so we're on the west side, and summer can be pretty busy because a lot of people are injuring themselves and a lot of broken bones and stuff like that.
A lot of people my age that are playing basketball that are breaking their ankles.
Yeah, or tearing their Achilles.
Yeah, and all that. That's what I worry about the most.
Yeah. So it's been a lot, and I think that's been one of the things that we grew really fast because we have a couple of kind of mid-size apartment complexes in Texas as well, and we got all that in 2021, and then we did a short-term rental last year, and this year is just we need to stabilize. I need to figure out how to, so I'm only working maybe 4 hours on this a week, so we have a virtual assistant and getting all our systems and processes in place because of, I don't see my kids enough, and so that's been a downside for sure.
Right, because the whole point of investing is to be able to have that passive income so you can spend more time with the kids, right?
Right, yeah.
So, okay, let's talk about the level up. So you got these 2 fourplexes. You're like, oh, this is fun. Like, what's next? How did you move on to the next one?
Well, a lot of it was very concurrent. So, and it started in the fall of 2020 is when we really started learning and digging into it. And Ashley sent me this deal that came through her email that was in Beaumont, Texas. And it was by a broker that her dad used to work with. And prices were pretty low there at the time. And so I called him up. Short story is that deal didn't end up working out, but he had gave me the number of the seller. And I called the seller directly. He's like, well, we already have somebody getting this place, but I might have a 22 unit coming up in February, so reach back out. And I flew to Beaumont in February of 2021. I was the one that went because I was able to get my vaccine.
Oh, yeah.
Being a healthcare professional. I got it before Jeff did.
Right.
And so flew out to Beaumont, Texas. Had never been out there. The seller was great. Toured me all around the city. And he let his property manager toured the property with me, and he's like, just ask him whatever you want. And that one didn't work out. It was just a little bit too much value add. It was just too heavy of a lift. Like, we did not feel comfortable with that one, but made really good connections. And a month later or so, 2 months later, the property manager, the owner of the company, called me, and he said, one of my owners who takes really good care of his properties wants to sell one of his places, 16 units.
Wow.
So I was like, I'm interested.
So he called you out of the blue. You hadn't been like constantly calling him back. You just met him that one time going out there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was, I was just sort of connected. Like, he has daughters, that are younger than me, but that were really progressing in their careers, and I don't know, somehow we just hit it off, and maybe I asked some good questions, I don't know, but yeah, he called, and then I called the owner, and we spoke for a while, and went through some negotiations and did a completely off-market deal and picked up a 16 unit, and then a few months later, we were going to be done. We closed on that in July of 2021. We were going to be done for the year. But then a duplex popped up in Beaverton.
Nearby?
Yeah, in Beaverton. I was
great.
It was like, I drive by it all the time. This is a great location. It won't cash flow, but we have to have it. And then a broker called Jeff saying, hey, I just saw that you guys bought this place in Beaumont. I have this place that's about 10 blocks away, 20 unit. Are you guys interested? Okay. So Jeff went out and saw that, and we ended up picking up that, and so now we have these 2 places in Beaumont, and those have actually been more work to get turned around.
Yeah.
Harder to lease up.
Yeah, more just it's been harder to retrain. So those tenants for a while, like they're C properties.
Yeah.
Those tenants were used to not paying a fair bit during COVID or paying late.
Right. Do you mind to interrupt, but do you mind talking a little bit about when you say C properties, just for our audience, like what you mean by that?
So A properties are your brand new builds, high end neighborhoods, most expensive. B is maybe your 80s, 90s.
Working class.
C is your 60s, 70s, working class. Blue
even more
collar,
working class.
Working class. D is you don't really want to touch it. I would actually say the second property we picked up on was probably a D plus, and I could talk for a long time on all the learnings that the things that we learned that we should have done that we didn't do. They'll be good properties. We've been putting more into them than we anticipated. They were just starting to cash flow because we'd done a lot of value add and increased rent. Just starting to cash flow this summer, and then our insurance rates went up by 56%.
Ooh, yeah.
And so what is that on you said 16 unit?
We have a 16 and a 20 unit.
Okay, so what does that look like on those units then?
So last year, our property wind hail tax on both those properties was $36,000. Our initial quote for renewal this year was $76,000.
Oh my!
Just for your insurance?
Just the property.
Oh, that's
property wind and tax, not including.
Oh, that's
not
including property
liability.
taxes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not property tax. No, property tax is separate.
Oh.
And I mean that's pretty high in Texas.
Yeah.
That's just your insurance.
Is there a reason why it went up?
So it's Gulf Coast, but all of Texas has just skyrocketed. I mean, by 3-4 times. So places there, you're getting per door. You're upwards of where you used to be around $600 to $800 a door for insurance is now anywhere from $16 to $2,300.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really that between that and property taxes, and then with rising interest rates, that's why you're seeing a lot of trouble right now in Texas.
Yeah.
We just need to ride it out. A bill was passed in the Texas legislature where the property taxes are going to be lowered, and my insurance broker said that if we don't have any major weather issues in Texas for a season, that the insurance rates will come down a little bit. But they're just not cash flowing like we had anticipated. So there's been a lot of learnings there, and that's the thing with investing. It's like unknowns are going to come up like this.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, can you tell me anything about Beaumont, Texas? Is there anything specific that drove you there, or any points of interest in that city?
Well, it actually has one of the oldest and largest historic districts in the south. It's got these beautiful old homes, beautiful oak, big huge old oaks, and called the Oaks District. There's it's by I think it's the largest port on the Gulf of Mexico, and a lot of oil stuff there.
Right.
So pretty strong job market. It's about 90 miles directly east of Houston.
Okay.
It's pretty close to the Louisiana border, but strong job market, pretty stable real estate market, but because it's more of a secondary tertiary market, prices have been historically a lot lower than Houston.
Right.
Now they got driven up over the last few years because Houston got so expensive that Houston investors started looking at Beaumont. It's a pretty local investing area, though. A lot of properties trade off market to people, that kind of know the people.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how you financed that one, the bigger ones?
So that one with commercial loans.
Okay.
So with a local, the seller of the original property we went out to look at that we didn't get, he introduced me to his banker, and I met with him when I was out there on my first couple of trips. Local federal credit union, super easy, nice to work with.
Did you guys have any trouble getting a commercial loan?
Or because
So much easier than
how was that?
residential.
Was that financed because your husband already had business credit or commercial record, or how did that part work, or did they just care about the property cash
It's
flow?
mostly just the property cash flow,
Yeah.
right? So they did, though, want a personal financial statement because these are recourse loans.
Yep.
So commercial loans can be recourse or non-recourse, meaning, recourse, you're on the hook personally liable if something
Right.
happens. So we did have to give our personal financial statement, but they didn't, they didn't pull a credit. And so those loans are not on our personal
Right,
credit.
it won't show it up on if
Yeah.
you're getting a
So it doesn't
normal
affect your
mortgage.
DTI.
You're not going to be it's not going to show up.
Yeah, it's so much easier to get a commercial loan.
I do have a question about that with recourse versus non-recourse. With the recourse loan, would you get a lower interest rate because they can come back, for your personal assets, or do you know anything about that?
I don't.
Yeah.
It's a good question. We got 4.5% at that time.
Oh man.
So.
But it's the typical 5-year balloon.
One's a 5, one's a 7.
Okay.
We did get 30-year amortization though on them.
Oh, nice.
And most commercial loans are more like 20 to 25 years.
Yeah.
So we got fortunate, and we got a 20% down, which you can't get now. Most commercial loans are, minimum 25, and these days it's more like 30 to 40.
Well, yeah, I mean, because nothing cash flows.
Right. Right.
Not at these rates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So they were super easy to work with, and got both loans with them, and
Nice.
yeah.
And did you have some hesitancy going out of state with your second and third deal? I know you mentioned that obviously you had to do one in Kaiser, which was at least drivable. You could have eyes on it, and then
Yeah.
Ashley convinced you to just go to Texas.
Yeah, it's very landlord friendly. I think what made us more comfortable with it is that we both really liked the owner of the property management company. And
you didn't have to switch that part. That part was going to stay the same.
yeah. So super solid people. You could tell that they really cared about the tenants, as well, and they also owned their own properties, so they kind of know both the owner side of the thing as well as taking care of tenants. We work pretty well together because they really like to maintain the properties well. If anything's broken, we just fix it. We don't want to be slumlords.
Right.
We want to improve the property, improve the neighborhood, and that's been pretty satisfying. The second building we picked up there, one of the tenants didn't even have a stove. He'd been using hot pots because the previous owners wouldn't buy him a new stove.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And so as soon as our property manager let us know about it, I'm like, buy him a stove, and he was super thankful.
I'll say this. I've seen some pretty rough homes that I've shown for some investor clients. One of them had their oven open and turned on because they didn't have heat.
Really?
So they just had the oven open and just kids crawling around. It was crazy.
Oh
So,
my God.
Yeah.
Thank God you're not into being a slumlord. So
Yeah. No. Yeah. And the owner that we bought our first place from there, he's born and raised in Beaumont. And one of his big passion is taking these older properties that have not been well maintained and really fixing them up and making them nice places to stay and improving the community.
Improving the community, yeah, I love that. And talk to us a little bit about real estate and the personal element. It's not, when we're talking, it sounds to me like it's really important to you to have a good feeling about, the people when you meet them. And it seems like you've gotten deals from people and not as much of this spreadsheet analysis. It's almost like that one-on-one that really helps, that networking. I think for a lot of people, they're always just overanalyzing stuff. What are your thoughts on just kind of getting the gut feeling from a person?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's tough. There was definitely a deal analysis going on.
Sure.
And we didn't, and we still, I still struggle with having a buy box, right? I do think that you need to have kind of, what are your goals? What is it that you're wanting this property to accomplish for you, for your vision, for your future? Where do you want to see it going? And is it going to fit into that? And then you got to choose properties that are going to fit. How, do you need something that's going to cash flow now, or are you okay if it negative cash flows for a little bit because it's going to appreciate and maybe more cash flow later. I think it's really important to try not to get into a negative cash flowing property.
Sure.
You want an asset, not a liability.
Right.
And so that was the most important thing. We're not trying to live off the passive cash flow now. We're building for our future. I'm not planning on neither of us are planning on retiring early.
Right.
But just want that cash flow there later so that when we get to that point, if we need to retire or want to retire, we're able to without having to worry about it. From the standpoint of finding these deals, the Texas deals, it was definitely the price point on the first property we got was maybe a little higher than we really wanted, but the owner, just after talking to him multiple times, also talking to the property manager, and kind of what his goals were and what he was trying to accomplish, he just seemed a really good person. And we've had dinner since. We keep in touch. We commiserate on the property taxes and the insurance. And so at the end of the day, it's those relationships that I think are super important and can make a good deal bad if there's a bad relationship, or it can make maybe a not so good deal end up being a good deal. And he's been super helpful to us with over the last couple of years when we've had issues with like the buildings. I've called him like, hey, what have you done with this? And he's hooked me up with other people. So building those relationships, I think it's super important.
Save you a lot of time and a lot of trial and error, I feel like.
But it takes time. And the first deal and those first few relationships are the hardest to get.
Right.
And then it just seems to snowball.
Yeah, and you mentioned you picked up the duplex and then a short-term rental, you said? Okay. I mean, obviously, short-term rental is a little bit of a shift, right?
That was a lifestyle asset.
Okay.
So we got married on Kauai 17 years ago and have always dreamed of having a place there. And it wasn't until... And we'd always kind of looked at the real estate there and then looked to see how much, property management takes out. And I'm like, well, it's never going to work. And it wasn't until we really got into investing and figured out, okay, there are these tools now. There's so much more tech now to do things on your own. And I had transferred some 401k money in 2018 into a self-directed IRA. And actually, this is probably my first real estate purchase, but purchased a condo in Hillsboro with it, with all cash in the IRA. Which is not a great use of an IRA funds because you're not leveraging, right?
So this is interesting. Would you mind talking a little bit about a self-directed IRA, because we haven't gotten into that with our audience very much, and also you mentioned non-recourse and recourse loans earlier. So can you explain how you kind of set that up with your IRA and what the process was for that?
Yeah, so you have to have a custodian. I use the Entrust Group.
Okay.
And
custodian meaning financial company.
It's a financial company that manages your self-directed IRA, and they hold your funds for you. Right. And they actually have to approve any type of transaction.
So they could have vetoed that condo if they wanted to.
Yeah. But I mean, typically, like real estate isn't allowed. It's an
approved source.
Right. It's an approved. But there's all these rules of prohibited transactions. You as the owner, you buy it within the trust, but it's for benefit of like me. So they had to do the paperwork and had to be the ones that signed it. I didn't sign anything. They're the ones that dispersed the funds.
Okay. So they want you to have like a layer of separation from it, more or less. So it's not like it's just this little like rental that you're managing.
Right.
They want you to have it completely.
Yeah, and you can't have like your kids living in it, or any direct relatives, or you can't any of the cash flow out of it. It has to go right back into the
everything
IRA.
Stays into your retirement account.
Yeah. And then and that appreciated a ton. But as I started learning more and more about the power of real estate investing, and really it's like a big part of it is leverage.
Right, you can put 10% down on a $950,000 asset or whatever you bought before, right?
Right, yeah. But it's really difficult to get a loan so banks aren't going to make a loan to an IRA. It's
because
really difficult.
You have to have it as a non-recourse, correct?
Exactly, yeah. So you either have to put a lot more down, or it's just a big hassle.
Yeah, there's companies that will do it, but they're typically, the interest rates are much higher than market and terms are a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think so. I pivoted, and I had also put some money from that into a fund, a real estate fund.
Okay.
Which I think is a better use. I think good uses for self-directed IRA in the real estate world are if you're going to be doing debt investing, right? So you can loan people your money out of there and get a fixed return, or invest in, a syndication. Although, you're not able to really harvest as much as the tax benefits.
Right, because a big benefit of syndication sometimes is the tax harvesting,
exactly.
right? So it's when it's in the IRA, it doesn't get that. Interesting.
So I ended up actually taking the hit, and we sold it for a pretty big gain in 2022, the spring, and just took the hit, but used that as a down payment for the condo in Kauai.
Okay, and so, but when you say take the hit, you sold it. Why did you take a hit?
Because I pulled it out of the IRA.
Oh, you just removed it, so you took the penalty.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because you weren't waiting to retirement to use the funds.
But because we had all these kind of passive, losses from real estate, we didn't end up having to pay a whole lot of extra taxes onto it.
Oh, you had enough.
But we had
enough.
But we had to pay the 10% penalty.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which you made how much? I mean, you made a bunch of money on it, so like a 10% penalty is it's not the worst thing in the world, right?
And now we have it into a condo that's making us a 12% cash on cash return. So it's been worth it, and we were willing to get it and get the condo, and we were going to be happy if we just were even Steven on it.
Yeah, because you got a loan on the one in Kauai, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because I was thinking, I don't know how much the condo was in Hillsboro, but you buying it all cash, I can imagine that cash-on-cash return was terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because people always ask me, should I put more down, all this stuff, and I tell people cash-on-cash return, and I don't think people really understand that concept, so if you want to explain it a little bit.
So cash-on-cash return is, if you put $10,000 into something, I can't do math in my head. When it's like a base of 10.
Right.
My husband makes fun of me. But, if you make $1,000 a year back on that, then
that would be 10%.
Exactly. It'd be your 10% cash on cash return.
Yeah, and talking about cash on cash return, I mean, I know you went and fixed a lot of the deferred maintenance on your property. When you were thinking about these fixes, did you think about the cash on cash return in terms of what to fix and how much it would raise value in rent, or how did you decide going about that?
Well, going in, there was stuff that we had to fix.
Yeah.
Right, there's leaks.
We need to fix these leaks. Stuff that we had to.
Yeah. This person doesn't have a stove. They need a stove.
That definitely doesn't raise rent or anything.
No. Our Kaiser properties are now actually sitting at around a 16% cash on cash, even with everything, because we only put in 10% for down.
10% down.
But
you haven't pulled out. You haven't pulled out money from them.
No.
Okay.
We were, but then the interest rates.
Right.
I mean, you got it at 3.5%, right, or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I mean, I wouldn't touch that.
No. We've explored it, and the lenders are like, yeah, it's not worth it, and it's not even worth it to sell right now, because we wouldn't get as much of our equity out, and then we'd be putting into something else that has a super high interest rate. So we sold, the condo, and picked up and then used that as the down payment. And we were fortunate and very lucky that we got our loan right before interest rates spiked.
Okay.
Last year, so we have a 3.875.
Oh, nice. And so that property in Hawaii you bought as a second home, or and now you Airbnb it. What do you use to manage that?
We use OwnerRez.
Okay.
It's a property management system for you've probably heard of Guesty, maybe similar.
So they manage the messaging. How about the cleaning, all that stuff?
So it does do messaging, but I still message people. Usually Hospitable is another one that can actually coordinate messaging with VRBO and Airbnb. It doesn't do booking.com, unfortunately, unless you use them as our primary property management system, but it kind of collates all of those. So then emails, because I get their email addresses, so that way I can message them directly through OwnerRez. But OwnerRez it hooks into, it's API connected with Airbnb, Booking.com, VRBO, and it manages all the calendars.
Okay.
I can make changes to our listing in there, and it populates it out.
Does it everywhere, so
Yeah.
they're all consistent.
Yeah.
Through one system. Got it.
Yeah, and then we have a revenue manager that uses Price Labs. I was doing that on my own with Price Labs for a little bit, but just I will spend way too much time on it.
Yeah.
And so
Trying to optimize for every holiday and all this
yeah,
stuff.
and so he takes 5%, but saves me a ton of hours and probably makes us more.
Yeah.
And
Because he's motivated to make
yeah.
more.
And our cleaning team cleaned for the old owner, and they're fantastic.
Oh, perfect. So you had a cleaning system set up.
So she, and her brother is a handyman. So
Perfect.
there are boots on the ground. And then last summer, Jeff spent a lot of time over there managing the renovation, and
Was there a lot of work on that one?
there was a lot of work. It was a little stressful last summer.
Well, you said it's a lifestyle asset, as in like, when you want to go out there and hang out, like you can just put it on the calendar.
Yeah. So the
Sounds
kids,
stressful.
you know,
God, I gotta go back to
we
Hawaii.
and now it's a write-off when we go. And then for eventually, when we retire, we can spend, more time out there, more extended period of time. I mean, right now, like, it needs to pay for itself.
Sure.
So,
I'm always, whenever I'm talking to people about doing the numbers on Airbnbs, I mean, it's even harder now, especially in like vacation areas. It always seems to me it's like cash flow, are you breaking even and are you able to visit? What is, to me that's value, but what has your experience been?
yeah, I think, the short-term rental was a huge boom in the last few years, and now there's been a big decline, especially in some markets. The Kauai area and Poi'ura and Poipu specifically is it doesn't have a lot of seasonality. Okay. So it's popular year round.
All year round.
It has some shoulder seasons that where price, like nightly rates will dip a little bit, but otherwise it's a very well-established vacation rental market. There's only 3 areas on Kauai where you can have short-term rentals, and
how
it's
much
one of them.
competition is there?
There's a lot of condos in the area, but there's not a lot of hotels.
Okay.
And then a lot of the condos, they're not up for rent all the time because their owners use them a fair bit.
Okay.
And so it's a pretty easy place to have a short-term rental that is booked a fair bit of the time.
So you're booked. What's your percentage?
85%.
Oh, 85. Wow. So solid. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sitting at 85% for the year right now.
Wow.
And we went for spring break.
And you always block off a couple of weeks or whatever that are the prime weeks usually. And when you have kids in school, that's usually how you have to do it. So.
And it's been fun to actually do the hospitality part and message guests and stuff and make it like, how are you guys doing? We'll leave like guests, like gifts for people if they're, they're coming for like a birthday or something.
Oh, nice.
And most of them have kids, and we've been taking our kids there since they were little, and so it's, we have great memories of it, and so being able to provide other people like with memory making experiences with their families it's been pretty fun.
And from a finance cash flow perspective, are you generating a decent amount of income, or is it breaking even, or where are you at?
No, I mean, like I said, we're at a 12% cash on cash for the year.
Oh, that's right, you said that.
Yeah,
okay.
Including the renovations. We were going to be okay even if we were a little negative, because whenever we go, we have to spend money to stay there anyways.
Yeah, for a hotel or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you got an amazing deal. I mean, locking in that low interest rate.
Yeah.
And.
But we self-manage. If we had property management, we would be negative cash flowing. So.
Right, because that's what typically looking at 25%. Yeah.
And the property management companies tend to like charge less too per night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of them, they just put in Price Labs, and so they don't have to deal with it.
Don't use Price Labs there.
Oh, really?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Air DNA, hopefully.
Set.
Something.
I
just
think
set.
So they're like just set rates. I go on there. Yeah.
Huh,
yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, I've set my own rates and I forgot to update my rates from summer in Portland. And I had somebody booked my entire winter with summer prices.
Oh, nice.
And that was a happy mistake for me. No, I mean, I think pricing is super important. And obviously having somebody who is thinking about, like I said, seasonality, holidays, maybe like just even thinking about events. Like, is there, I don't know, an Ironman triathlon or something going on there?
There's the Kauai Marathon over Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
So we haven't got it booked yet.
Sounds like a nice marathon to run.
Yeah. But that's the only reason we went for a short-term rental. It's just a little bit too active and, I guess, risky. I think I think if it seems like a lot of the most successful real estate investors, they stick with one strategy, at
Right.
least for a good period of time. I tend to have a little bit of a shiny object syndrome. I'm trying to
Well, I mean,
stay focused.
you've done this all in like a few short years, so I think it's good to kind of explore what you really like, right? And is there anything, I mean, that you love? Like you've done like, you know, small multifamily, large multifamily, you know, short-term rentals. Is there anything that really speaks to you?
You know, I think I really like the small multifamily. I like the idea, the prospect of you get a lot more cash flow with larger multifamily.
Right.
It's just not as personal.
Yeah.
It might be different if we had one here that we could be more hands-on.
Sure.
Versus it's a property somewhere in a couple states over. I think speaks to me. I like to be able to go and see and look and make sure things are running okay and maintenance is actually being done when it said it's being done. And to that, we would love to actually pick up more local, like to actually focus a little bit more local. We both love Portland, and we would love to try to help bring it back to its glory, if you will, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I'm always looking for small multifamilies in the Portland area.
Well, there's a lot of them on sale. You know? Let's say a lot of people are not very happy with Portland right now.
I know. So Warren Buffett is like, what's his quote?
Oh, I forgot.
When people are greedy, be stingy. When
Something
yeah,
like that.
something
like when
yeah.
when people are running away, run for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Like do what the opposite of what the crowd is doing.
Yes.
When
Basically.
there's blood in the
So,
streets, invest. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
something like that.
So I personally, I believe in Portland. I think it's always been a high appreciating market. People are always going to want to live here.
Yeah. I mean, it's half the price of Seattle. Still, you know, one of the cheapest city by far on the West Coast.
the cheapest major city on the West
Yeah.
Coast. I mean, I have a lot of friends from the Bay Area coming here, friends from LA, friends from Seattle moving here because they're just getting priced out from, you know, all those hubs.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
we're still growing, and we're still growing out too, which is great. Like,
Yeah.
You know, our Happy Valley, Beaverton's got a ton of new developments, so I mean, we still got a lot of room to grow.
Yeah.
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 And is so longer term? Do you plan on keeping your full-time surgery career, or are you wanting to pull back from that and push more into real estate investing, or?
Not until I retire. You know, I feel like I'm pretty fortunate because I have a job that I enjoy going to every day. And I don't see myself. I'm 50, so at least another 10 years. But once I retire from that, I'm going to need something to do.
Right.
And this is kind of the only other thing that over my adulthood that I've really found that I can be passionate about. And so I see it being my second career after medicine.
Yeah, I mean, orthopedic surgery is pretty physical too. Like
It is. And so, you know, that as I get older, those are things I think about. My
Yeah.
job is pretty physical, and if I get injured and I can't do my job anymore, like having now a real estate portfolio that we can grow and expand upon makes me more relaxed at work.
Right.
If it's
not
a
as
little
worried
hard.
about,
It's a little hard
not
to
as worried
explain.
about having a little injury that
Right.
ruin your career, and
Like, I
suddenly
can-
your earning potential just goes way down
Right.
and you're screwed.
Like I feel like I can even enjoy my job even more.
Totally, yeah.
Because I'm just a bit more relaxed about it.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's made me a little bit even a better physician in a lot of ways. One, it's definitely given me a lot more business acumen because I've been delving a lot more into business development.
And when you're in private practice, that's super important.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the hospitality part of the short-term rentals has made me a lot more thoughtful about the experience that our patients have as they come through the office.
Totally.
And how can we improve
Right.
that experience, because really we're in a service industry too.
Yeah, 100%.
And
There's choices
Yeah.
of who you get your surgery with, right? You're not. It's it's not. You're not forced into one.
yeah.
And I mean, I just think about this in terms of, you know, my career as a realtor. I mean, they have this thing called commission breath, you know, where people basically, you know, like when you're forced to sell a home to put food on the table is difficult, and you know, obviously if you can have the freedom of mind to just really focus on what you do and enjoy it, like you can give the best experience possible.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's great life experience overall too. Like now you know what small town Texas looks like, right? You know what those people are doing there. You know what troubles they're going through with insurance premium. Like you just have a better overall life experience that you wouldn't have had if you wouldn't have decided to start investing in real estate. So I think it's super, super useful.
Yeah, and then also how a lot of the world lives on a day-to-day basis too.
100%, yeah.
And apartments and what some of the challenges that they go through, and
yeah, and in that conversation of slumlord, like it's one thing to read about it. It's a whole nother thing to like
See and experience.
holy shit, like you don't have a stove? Like
Yeah.
how did your previous landlord not
Yeah.
give you a stove? That's crazy, right?
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think that comes back to the work thing too. Like a lot of people see, you know, the properties as a means to an end to make money, or even their job as a means to ends to make money, and so they do the lowest possible work to get that across to get, you know, to the end goal, which is making money, which
Yeah.
is tough, you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I try to think about that and not let that creep into, you know, my personal management or, you know, my job as a realtor, because it just degrades everything.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, I think also, like, if you really keep up with your properties and you continuously improve them, your tenants see that, and you're always responsive to them, ultimately in the long run it's going to make you more money,
Yeah.
because you're going to have less turnover. Turnover really kills profit, and you're going to ultimately get better tenants in there and who are going to stay with you. So I think being a slumlord can bite you in the butt in a lot of ways. And yeah, I could go, you know, we could go into like some of the due diligence of some of these bigger properties, but you know, we actually didn't end up walking every single unit of that building. So we should have known that there was a person in there who didn't have a stove.
Right.
Yeah.
There was definitely things that I think we could have picked up on that we could have negotiated further on the price of that second one.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Sure.
so I feel like a little chagrin, like how could we have bought a place and not know that somebody didn't have a
I
stove?
mean, that's a lot of units.
Hindsight's
to walk
20/20.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you can always do more, right?
Yeah, but it's, you know, with the people say like you should walk every single unit.
through. It's funny because I have a friend who, in his property in Texas, I think they found a couple meth producing units that they completely missed.
Yeah,
so
he's been struggling with that one for a while.
yeah. So I mean, yes, definitely do your due diligence, and I mean, at the end of the day too, like, I think it's just the cost of tuition. You know, sometimes that's the thing we have to learn.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Now we walk every unit. You know, I've made some mistakes. You know, definitely through my properties too. That I'm like, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, I will always get a sewer scope.
Yeah.
Now, and I'll always get an HVAC person out to evaluate every single unit.
Yeah.
And then tell me how much life they think they have on it and how much it's going to cost to replace them if they go out.
Yeah.
Sewer scope and HVAC.
Those are two-
Those are the two ones that
Yes.
are non-negotiable for you, huh?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Those have
interesting.
been really costly for us there. Now, HVAC, that's something that, I mean, it's a CapEx. They're going to last a long time, but we didn't expect so many to go out all at once. And then we ended up having a big sewer pipe have a hole in it and tons of leaks
Oh,
that
yeah.
caused, I mean, yeah. So
It's very expensive.
we ended up
extremely expensive.
expensive. We ended up having 2 units down for like 6 months, and yeah, so
Rough.
lessons learned. I mean, they're not, you know, they're not failures, they're learnings.
Each unit has their own individual HVAC. You're not using like cadet heaters or anything.
Yeah,
simple?
HVACs, and they're on the roof, so it has to have a
Oh.
crane to put them on the roof.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds.
And I'll try to stay away from flat roofs from now on too.
I've heard that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, for our audience who want to get started in real estate, what kind of advice would you give them?
Maybe especially if it's like someone in the medical field, you know, that's kind of like thinking, you know, because that's kind of your friends. If they're watching this, like, what would you suggest to them if they're like, yeah, I want to do that, but I'm not sure how.
Yeah, as a good, you know, there's a lot of interested people actually, and we have just actually started up a Oregon Physician Women's Group real estate investing meetup.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Smart.
and because there's a lot of interest in. I would say spend at least 6 months learning, and there's just so much out there now with podcasts and books and.
Yeah. What are some things that like flipped a light bulb for you?
Well, I mean, listening to pretty much all the Bigger Pockets podcasts. There's an asset management book called Best in Class.
Best
like
in Class.
Gary, I forget his last name. It's a red book. That's a great book for just helping to analyze, underwrite deals. It's more geared towards multifamily, but just the asset. How do you improve your properties and how you actually manage them? Because a lot of people talk about buying the properties, but then no one ever really talks too much about actually managing, and that's one of the most important parts is asset managing once you have it. There's so many books that I have read that it's a little hard to pull them out. Brandon Turner's, his multifamily, multi-millionaire multifamily books, Volume 1, Volume 2, I think are fantastic.
Okay.
And he also had an earlier book on property management, which was pretty key. And I think there's so many more courses now out there. I think it's really key to find a group that you resonate with, and that have people with like mindset and goals and vision, who have started before you to learn from. So I think the mentorship is huge. I was very fortunate to have Ashley as a friend and mentor to start off with, and then along the way I have found physician groups who are very active in real estate investing to learn from as well as mastermind with.
Cool.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. I definitely, believe in having like that circle of 5 people to kind of uplift you. So,
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kim, for coming on the show. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge. And I don't know if you have like a Instagram that people could follow you or reach out to you on.
I never look at it.
But I don't know if like you're interested in that. But if you did want someone to reach out to you or have the opportunity to from this podcast, is there some?
People just email me. It's Kimberly, just L-Y, not L-E-Y, .L, .workman, WRKMAN @gmail.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.